Let's move on and let's go and see how the internet did react to that dreadful performance yesterday. No Context Tottenham is comparing our front three under Mourinho to our front three yesterday with Johnson, Solanke, Moore compared to Gareth Bale, Harry Kane and Son Heung-min.
I mean, we did finish 8th in that season. So, I mean, we can be nostalgic about the season we finished 8th if we want, but it is not as good of a front three now. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, one of those players is still in the squad. Let's not forget
and one
that.
of them, and another one's a generational talent.
And the other one, yeah,
Come
Mikey Moore will be at the forefront for years to come. But, you know, right now, it doesn't compare to that front three.
Well, no, it doesn't. But again, as I say, that season we finished 7th or 8th. It wasn't exactly like that front three. Isn't exactly like because we had that front three, we were a much better team. You know what I mean?
But right now we're 9th.
Right now we're 9th.
Yeah.
But I don't think we'll finish 9th in my opinion.
David, We Are Tottenham TV Korea says in their last 3 Premier League games, Tottenham lost both games that Son Heung-min didn't play in. The only game he did play was the 4-1 win against West Ham.
I mean, it is a small sample size, 3 games, but you know, to be honest, look, I was reading. I think Vicario was. He was asked about the absence of Son. He said, we have to be able to win games without Son. We lacked something, not in football, but in attitude and fight. Maybe he's hinting that, you know, without Son's leadership, that was something we lacked yesterday. And people keep saying, "Oh, is Son a captain?" I hate when people complain about Son being a captain or Son's leadership because I just see him and I think he's a great captain. I think he's got a great leader, and I think there is something maybe we missed yesterday without his leadership skills.
I agree, but with the players that we had on the pitch yesterday, you know, it was very close to our best 11. The only change you would make is Son in for Mikey Moore, right? In terms of our best 11, there's enough experience on there to have leaded. Maddison, Romero, both in the leadership squad. Kulusevski, who I've been talking about, that has growing in terms of the leadership aspect. Vicario, a really good leader, in my opinion, as well. Like, there's more than enough in there to be able to, like, in terms of what he's saying, in terms of the lack of the fundamental, that should never be happening, even when you have a B team on the team. But that was very close to our first 11.
Agreed. No, you can't. It's not an excuse. It's just something that is there to notice. Obviously, we have won games in the past couple months without Son. It's not like we can't win without him. But yesterday, maybe that was something lacking. I don't know.
What games have we won without Son?
We beat United.
Yeah.
Won some Europa League games. We didn't beat West Ham. West Ham, Son came back. But we went on a run, didn't we? 5 wins without Son, pretty much. I mean, we beat Brentford. He was with Son, and then he got injured.
Yeah.
We won a few games without him. Was it the cup game? Do we win a cup?
Coventry.
Have we not played in the cup since?
No.
That was without Son, yeah. We won one without Son there.
So, I mean, in terms of teams of note, I mean, we haven't beaten anyone, have we?
Look, every game's tough.
Yeah. especially when you're a Spurs fan. Jim Oso Spurs says it's amazing how quickly people forget where we were 18 months ago and claim there hasn't been enough progress. And look, I agree with this. You know, as much as I've been, you know, not happy with what I've seen over the past couple of weeks in terms of Brighton and Crystal Palace, it is important to note that there has been a crazy amount of change over the last 18 months. If you look at this squad, if you bring it bigger, obviously in goal, you had Lloris, Austin and Forster. Now we got Vicario, Austin and Forster. Right back, Porro, Spence and Royale. Obviously Royale's not there anymore. We got Archie Gray in there as well. Romero, Tanganga, Longley, Sanchez. I mean, only one centre-back there is still at the club. And you've got much better cover with Dragoshin. Obviously, Van der Ven is there as well. Davis and Sessegnon. Davis is obviously in this last year of his contract not playing much at the more. Sessegnon's gone. And we got Destiny Adogi. The midfield options look a lot different as well. Obviously, it's Bissouma, Bentancur, Asara there, but Kulusevski and Maddison as well. With Højbjerg and Skip gone. No creative midfielder we had in the squad in that moment in time because Kulusevski was used as a right winger and our only right winger. Son and Perisic, Kane and Richarlison. So, I mean, there's been a crazy amount of change in the last 18 months. So, I mean, that's a reason why I'm backing the manager as well, because change doesn't happen overnight, but I still expect better.
Of course, and when you have when you have defeat to that, it's going to be ultimately frustrating. But those are challenges you're going to face when you have this much upheaval. And I thought last season, was about just changing laying the foundations for how we want to play. Last season was about changing from that defensive, reactionary football that we had under Mourinho and Nuno and Conte, and really changing the mentality of the squad. And getting in fifth while doing that was positive, albeit we did completely fall apart at the end of the season. But that was what it was about. This season is about now really implementing, having control of games, and really starting to get this team to play the way Ange wants them to do, in terms of actually not just laying foundations, but really understanding that we can actually take control and moving it on a stage. And I think we are starting to do that. Unfortunately, we have lost 4 games, and that's really frustrating. But I'm looking at the games, and I still believe we're playing a lot better than we were last season, and that's an improvement.
I just don't understand though, like how, because you look at our players man for man in our squad, and apart from Timo Werner, you would say all these players are good enough right now, right? You'd say the manager, we want to give the manager time, we want to trust him, we think he's the right man for the job. I think me and you are in agreement of that. Mm-hmm. But what I don't get is in these last 2 away games, a lack of fight. That's what bothers me here, because I don't see players on that pitch. If I go through those players individually, I don't think any of those players lack fight on an individual basis. But you look at the team against Palace in the second half against Brighton, how are we allowing this lack of fight? I don't get it.
It's hard to put your finger on. I don't know. Necessarily yesterday it was all just about a lack of fight. I think it was like
because they outfought us on the game. They were so much more aggressive than us. They looked like they wanted it more, and they outfought us. We shouldn't be getting outfought.
But I don't think it's totally down to that. Is why we lost. Is my point. And I think when we're having the problems that we were having, in my opinion, tactically, all of a sudden, when you're getting overloads and you're struggling to build up and stuff like that, it makes it look like we're just, lacking fight and all that kind of stuff. But actually, Palace are getting a lot of tactical advantage, which is making us look a lot worse in that aspect in terms of lacking fight. Now, there were situations where we were sloppy, like the goal, like the building up from the back from the goal, and as well, there were situations where we didn't seem up for it, like we're playing balls into Johnson or something, and he's allowing Mitchell to get ahead of him and stuff like that. And those are mentality issues we need to sort out. But I don't know. I look at this team and the way we generally play, and obviously we're usually very aggressive, very front foot, and very much looking to physically dominate our team. And yesterday, we usually have the tactical overload advantages to do that because of how we set up against usual teams. But yesterday, we didn't have those tactical advantages, so it makes it look like we're just not running, or it makes it look like we're easily being dealt with. But I don't think it's totally down to just this team not being up for a fight, albeit there were definitely occasions where that was true, which stand out.
Mitch Fretton says, still behind Ange, it takes time. We've said that consistently throughout the stream, but he needs to start changing the results at away games, because it's clearly been not good enough for the past 12 months.
Yeah, that's the big thing he's got to address, 100%.
Spurs Web saying Spurs have gone behind at some point in 14 of their last 24 Premier League games under Ange Postecoglou. They've only won one of those games, the 5-2 win at Burnley over a year ago.
And that's not good. That goes to show that, especially away from home, when we have adversity, we really struggle to overcome that. Which is it's an interesting stat, because I think last season, if you take the whole season, and maybe even some games this season, I think we've actually claimed a lot of points from losing positions. But I'm guessing that means generally being at home, because away from home, as the stat says, when we go behind, we find it very difficult to overcome that situation. So this is definitely a team. I mean, there's still clearly a big element of lads, it's Tottenham about us. I mean, clearly there is, because
100%.
Especially away from home, when we go behind, it seems as though we don't seem to be able to overcome that situation. And whether that's a mentality issue or what it is, there's clearly a big element of that which we still need to fix.
Mm-hmm. Jay says, Romero is effing awful. People need to stop raving about him because he plays well for Argentina. Who the F plays a ball like that across your own box? Yeah, look, I've stated my frustrations about Romero quite often this season, particularly in the early stage of the season. He was at fault for quite a few of the goals that we were conceding. I believe that he is a top quality defender. I just also believe that he's not showing his best self at the moment, and I'm not sure why that is.
Yeah, but I also think as well, you look at like yesterday, for example. Yeah, the pass was not a clever pass, and Van der Ven ends up slipping or whatever. But look how many times he's left in a one-on-one situation and he has to deal with that, like he was at the back end of the second half, and he was able to overcome that. Like, do people think if we put Dragoshin in, it's just going to magically turn better? Like, and it's going to be, we're going to concede less goals? I don't believe that. I think it'll probably be worse if we put Dragoshin in, especially with his ability on the ball. I know he gave the ball away a bit yesterday, Romero. But do we really think Dragoshin's going to give a ball away less than Romero is? Do you really think that in those situations like Romero was in 1-on-1, Dragoshin's more likely to come out on top than Romero is? I don't think so. So I know Romero's been, in some situations, not shown his best self. Like maybe, look, you could say that corner that we conceded against Arsenal, Dragoshin maybe would have done better. That goal we conceded against Leicester, maybe Dragoshin would have done better. I understand those situations. But I think in general, when you're comparing Dragoshin to Romero, I still think we'll get a lot more upside from having Romero in than we would over having Dragoshin. In my opinion.
I believe what you're saying. 100% believe that Romero is a better player than Dragoshin and fits our system a lot better than Dragoshin as well. But that doesn't get away from the reality that Romero isn't playing his best football this season.
Yeah, especially in some moments in the box, for sure. I agree, and that's reality. That is reality.
Talking THFC says our worst performance since, well, about 3 weeks ago in Brighton. No Sonny means no leaders in this squad. Plain and simple. 10 points off the top, and we've not even played 10 games. That's all with City, Villa, Chelsea, Liverpool and Forest before 2025. Yikes.
Yeah, I mean, you could always put those games together. I mean, look, everyone has to play everyone. Like, yeah, we have to play these difficult games, so does a lot of our rivals. But look, we're 10 points off City. I mean, I don't think anyone was looking at being in the title challenge this season, to be honest. So as much as that doesn't look good, it does. I'm more looking again at like the top 4, top 3, and we're not too far away from those teams at the moment. We have to play City twice. One in the cup. One of them is in the cup, not in the league. Obviously, that's going to be a difficult game, but we gave City 2 very good games last season. Drew 3-3 away, and at home, that was one of our better games, albeit we lost 2-0. That was one of our better games last season. Villa, we won 4-0 last season. I know we lost 2-1 at home last season. We could have easily won that game. Chelsea, we did have 2 very bad games, so I can see that. And the way Chelsea are playing, look, it's going to be difficult. Liverpool's going to be difficult. Premier League is difficult, and all these games are going to be difficult. Nothing is gimme, but that's the nature of the Premier League. All these teams that they're talking about are also going to drop points. So, yeah, it's difficult, but I'm not sitting here thinking we're not going to win any of those games, in my opinion.
Is these teams, all these games last season, City, Villa, Chelsea, Liverpool, forget Forest. I mean, for those 4 games, Liverpool, Chelsea, Villa and City, we picked up 1 point from those 4 teams all of last season?
Well, we beat Liverpool at home. With 9 men,
yeah, three points.
We lost to them 4-2 away. Chelsea 2 defeats. Villa was we were beaten away, lost
6
at home,
points,
and then City we got a point, so 7 points.
7 points. If we pick up 7 points, are you happy with that, or we need more?
If we pick up 7 points, over the both legs? You mean over both games? It's not great, but it's not great, to be honest. I mean, I'm probably looking for more, but beggars can't be choosers, I guess, at this point.
We need to respond in a massive way against this Villa game at home. We have to go and beat them. 100%. We have to. Trevor Bissouma says, more angry with that than the Brighton game. Just offered nothing. Players did nothing, and Ange lost his head with those subs. Like I said, as long as we are in those cups, he is safe with me. But go out of them with our league form being ropey could turn quickly. And do you agree with that? Do you feel like if he does go, and I mean, it's hard to see us going out the Europa League at this stage. I don't know if it's even possible. But if we do lose to City in midweek, are a lot of fans going to start turning?
For lose to City, obviously it's another trophy gone, isn't it? So that's the big thing for a lot of our fans. And as soon as another trophy gets crossed off the list, the manager comes under a lot of pressure, and all of a sudden it's another chance of breaking that trophy drought. So I do expect the pressure to build. But first of all, I'm pretty certain we're going to go through in Europa League anyway. Was I more angry yesterday than the Brighton game? I actually wasn't, in a funny way, because I think it's a difference between, in the Brighton game, we were on top of them, we were 2-0 up, we had that game in our hands, right, and we completely let it slip because of ourselves. I don't think that was the case yesterday. Yesterday was a different kind of game where we didn't find solution. We had big problems from the start, and we never found solutions through the game, which is always harder to manage, I feel, than a game like Brighton when you're 2-0 up and you have that game in your grasp and you completely let it slip. I think that's more inexcusable than a game like yesterday, where you have a lot of tactical issues. You have a team who are obviously desperate to win after not winning in 8 games. A good team, in my opinion, as well. And as much as it's frustrating, we didn't find those solutions, or we didn't find solutions to the problems that we had yesterday. And that's a worrying sign. I'm not going to be as frustrated with that as I was with the Brighton game, where we had 3 points in our hands and we just threw it away because of our own stupidity.
It's true, but at least when you're comparing the two games, at least there are positives to go on. When you finish that game and get over the emotion of it, there are positives to take home from that, which would have been our first half performance. Obviously, we threw it away, and it makes us very angry. But there was no positives to go on yesterday.
Okay, but the reason I'm going to say I'm still more angry with the Brighton game is because the game with the Palace game, right? You're going to have games like that, aren't you? You're just going to throughout the season, you're going to have games where teams set up or teams get the better of you tactically. It's not going to happen every game that you get the better of the opposition manager tactically. It's just not going to happen. There will be games like there were yesterday where it's a bad day tactically. They outdo you, they just do a job on you, they figure you out, whatever, right? That will happen throughout the season. When you have a game like the Brighton game and you have that win in your grasp, you have it, you've literally got 2 hands on 3 points and you chuck it away, that's on you in a way. So that's like 3 points that should be a +3 on the table. That's turned into a 0 because you've chucked it away. And that for me is more infuriating than having a game like yesterday where you're just outdone tactically, because that will happen during a season. But when you have a game where you've got 3 points in your grasp, you throw it away, that's even more frustrating because you've outdone the opposition tactically and you've completely thrown it away. And that's even more frustrating in my opinion, because that should be a +3.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but I mean, in terms of what you're saying is games like yesterday will happen over the course of the season. Like, there should be something that you can look at and take away from the game, but there's literally nothing. Like, over a whole 90-minute stretch, we did nothing to counteract the tactics that Crystal Palace were throwing us. And I mean, I look at that and I'm being like, what the hell is going on here? You know what I mean? Like, there's just nothing to take away at all from that game, and I can't accept that and saying like, oh, these games happen.
Fair enough, I can. And that will happen. These games will happen. It will happen to every team this season, that kind of game. It will just happen.
I don't think it will.
It will.
I don't think so.
Look at Arsenal against Bournemouth. It happens.
Arsenal against Bournemouth.
Yeah, they lost 2-0.
Yeah, but Arsenal against Bournemouth, first of all, they've been playing like that all season, and they find like a set piece or something to get through the game. But it so happens that Saliba got sent off after 35 minutes or whatever the game was. So I think that's where the game actually turned, even though they weren't playing well before that. But in the majority of away games, they play similar like that and get over the line with a 1-0 win. It's not like they got completely tactically outdone in that game. That's just the way they play their football. Spurs got completely overrun and overdone and tactically done throughout the game, and we couldn't find any sort of answer to combat them physically or tactically.
It just look at Liverpool against Forest. Like, they were tactically outdone in that game. They didn't find any answers to Forest.
That was like his 5th game of management.
I know, but I'm just saying it happened. But that's my point. My point is, it happens. These games will happen to every team this season, where you have a bad day, you really get tactically outdone, and the opposition just get the better of you, and you have to figure out why it happened and not let it happen again. But those kind of games will just happen throughout a season. You can't, unless you're going to, be invincible. They will happen every game. Not every game. They'll happen in the season at some point, and you have to obviously figure out. Games like Brighton shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen. Games like Palace will happen sometimes.
I don't think either of them should happen, to be honest. I'm happy. I'm not happy, but I can take losing a game, right? But there needs to be something to cling on to and to go on to in that 90-minute stretch of football. And that's what I'm saying. There was just
Of
nothing
course,
there.
and that's obviously what you strive for. But games, you will have off days, and we had a bad off day where we were tactically outdone yesterday.
The caller says, we are a mid-table side. Discuss.
I don't think we're a mid-table. Well, it depends how you define mid-table. Is mid-table from where to where? From
I
what,
think mid-table's
7th to...
probably 7th or 8th down to like 12th, 13th.
Well, I think we'll finish higher than that. So that's my opinion. I think we're better than... I know we're 9th for the moment. I think things could look very different. I mean, yes, you could argue things could look worse as well if we have go on a bad run. But I think, the league table really doesn't mean much. I know Man City are top and, the top 3 might be the top 3 come the end of the season. But I also maintain that the league table doesn't mean too much up until like 15, 16, 17 games in. And then unless you're really far apart, like if you're like 12 points adrift, then you can say, okay, you're probably out of the race or whatever you're challenging for. But I think at this stage, the league table's so tight, it really doesn't mean too much.
Yeah, to a certain extent, I agree that the league table doesn't mean anything at this stage of the league. But you look at the league table now, and probably the top 5 best teams in the league are probably in the top 5.
Yeah, so I'm saying, as much as that's true, again, it could change very quickly. So we'll wait and see what happens.
This stage last season, we were top of the league, right?
We were. Didn't mean much.
And now Man City are there, 23 points, Liverpool 22. How are we? 5 points outside the top 4 at the moment. And if we lose, it'll be 8. If we win, it'll be 2. So a lot hinges on this weekend.
It's a big weekend.
Billy T says, dressing up as a complete pass and scaring the Spurs team this Halloween. A completed pass.
Yeah. God, that's looks like we'll scare them after what happened yesterday.
1882 _ Tottenham says, but please don't just naively shout Ange out and make claims a good coach could get more out of this squad. It's a bang average squad with little attacking individuality. It's on the hierarchy and the woeful recruitment. I disagree that we've got a completely bang average squad. I think we've got a fairly good squad, but obviously we're still smack bang in the middle of a rebuild and we need to add more to it. I don't think we've got a bad squad.
I don't think we've got a bad squad. I think it's young. I think it's got a lot of learning to do and it's got a lot of figuring out to do. But I think there's a lot of potential with a lot of... Yes, there's holes there. Yes, there's not perfect squad and it needs improvement in certain areas. But I think what we have, there's a lot of individual quality. And there's a lot of things we can build on. And yes, when we have days like yesterday, it looks terrible. But I think in general, there's a lot of things to be excited about with this squad, in my opinion.
Kidaba Ponytail says, the issue with Ange is the same as it's always been. He's done all the big picture stuff to turn us into a good team, but doesn't seem to be able to do the small picture stuff that can get us into a great team.
I think there is some truth to that. Some truth. I think when it comes to laying foundations and getting us playing in a certain way, he's done a really good job. I do think there are certain little details and meticulous things which I think a lot of the top coaches like Guardiola, even Arteta, are very focused on, and I feel like Ange
What stuff are you alluding to?
Like little tactical things, like in game, like stuff like focusing on opposition where they're weak and all these different things, and like meticulously focused on details. I think Ange is very much focused on big picture things, like how we set up tactically, in terms of how we want to play our football. But I don't think in game or even week to week, I feel like Ange isn't the type of manager who focuses on what the opposition does or meticulously.
But Poch was like that as well.
Yeah, and Poch was like that as well. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, but I also think...
Well, it must be a bad thing if it can't make us into a great team.
And I don't agree that it can't make us into a great team, but I also think Klopp was like that. I also don't think Klopp was all about finer details all the time. It was all about how we were going to play, kind of thing, and the bigger picture of how we assert ourselves in the opposition, rather than focusing on little tactical details. But I do feel like as Klopp went on, he did start to focus on those things a bit more, and that's how they became great. And maybe Ange will as well. But I do think at the moment he isn't focused on those things, and maybe, I wouldn't say it's holding us back, but maybe those kind of things are still to be worked on.
Yido90 says, last week of the transfer window, we heard Gray and Bergvall have blown the coaches away, and we now didn't want to sign a midfielder. Now starting a league game.
Not started
a single league game, or even made it on the pitch in most of the time. Fans lap up the bollocks fed to the media year in, year out. And I do agree with this to a certain extent, but it is only, a small sample size and early in the season. We're 8 or 9 games into the season, and they've played Europa League games, but they do need to be making more of an impact in the league as well.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, they are still 18. They're still very
young, but if that's the excuse, then you need to buy another midfielder then. Like, you can't say we're going to rely on these guys if we're not relying on them.
But we've got great midfielders. We've got very good midfielders. We've got Deck, who's playing great. We've got Maddison. We've got Bentancur, Basuma. Like, who are they supposed to be playing ahead of? Well,
they should come on and make impacts in games. Where yesterday we took off both our creative outlets and we had Bergvall on the bench and didn't want to bring him on.
Yeah, we went 4-4-2. We went for pure legs in the middle. Yeah, look, I think he got tactically wrong yesterday, but I don't think it's a case of we're not giving these young players enough game time. Like, I think they're getting lots of minutes in Europa League. They're still finding they're still building their way in, and they have come on in Premier League games. Yes, maybe not substantial minutes. I think against Man United, Bergvall came on for 15-20 minutes. Earlier in the season, he had a few cameos as well. We're just easing them in. We have to protect them. We can't just chuck them in. But I think there will be used more as the season goes on. But I think what we're doing is right, bedding them in Europa League, giving them minutes, edging them in the Premier League as well. And then when the right time comes, we'll give them their opportunities.
I mean, Archie Gray is not getting any minutes in the league, really. He got 3 minutes at the end of West Ham, 3 minutes against Brentford. And that's about it since the Everton game.
Okay. Maybe he could make a few more cameos. But again, Porro's by and large having a very good season. I know he didn't have a great game yesterday, but by and large having a very good season. Are we supposed to... I mean, if we're asking them to come on and make an impact, we're asking Gray to come on and change the game. I don't think that's going to happen.
No, but we're supposed to be relying on these players, and if players aren't performing, then they should be able to get their chances.
Who's not performing?
Well, you look at yesterday and you look at the second half of the Brighton game, a lot of people are not performing.
Yeah, but why should we be relying on that situation on 2 18-year-olds to change it?
Because they told us these guys are here to be relied on. That's why we didn't sign another midfielder.
Okay, but that's not relied on to change games when we're not playing well. It's more relied on to be part of a squad, which they are, and they're getting their minutes. I think it's a harsh criticism to say, well, we were losing these games, they didn't play, so this whole thing's been a waste of time. Like, I don't think that's a fair criticism.
All right, what's next? Is it Ben White next?
Yeah.
Ben White, anyone suggesting we should change the manager every time we lose a football match falls into the two camps. People who never wanted him and just wait for the opportunities to have a dig, or people who just cannot handle their team losing and will wet the bed no matter what. I do think it's ridiculous at this stage to call for Ange out. I think it is ridiculous.
I agree, and I think for 9 games in, considering for how we've played, I know that again. If you told me at the beginning of the season, 9 games in, we would have lost 4 games and won 4 games and drawn 1, and would I have taken that? Obviously not. I wouldn't say that's a good start to the season for sure. But context is everything, and you've got and you look at the eye test, and for much of these games, we should have a lot better results, and we have been playing a lot of good football. Yesterday was not one of those days, unfortunately, and it was a bad day at the office, and it was really bad. We played really bad football at the end, and it's frustrating, but I'm not going to throw it all away just on the back of that. And even off the back of, we played bad against Brighton as well in the second half. But I'm not going to chuck it all away just because of those 2 games.
But we do obviously need to see drastic improvements, because the games that we were losing in the early part of the season, you could cling on to something. But these 2 last defeats in the Premier League, have definitely shown signs of, going backwards instead of going forwards.
Yeah, and that's something Ange has to deal with.
Jake says, never underestimate Dr. Tottenham. And that was in reply to HLTCO saying, had quite a few Spurs fans saying, don't worry, Dr. Tottenham will sort you out Sunday. I don't think even the most Spursy Spurs team will struggle with us given our showing tonight.
Well, HLTC doesn't know Spurs, does he? Now he does.
Dr. Tottenham is here to see you. Lily White Lab saying, amongst the chaos, Solanke can hold his head high. The rest of them not so much. And yeah, I mean, Solanke can hold his head up high. It's like at points it was just like him against the whole of the Palace team.
Yeah, and I think he was the only one who was actually able to hang on to the ball, beat his man as well, win his individual duel, and actually get the ball forward. And it was a shame that the rest of the team weren't able to do some of the stuff he was able to do. But actually think in general he had a pretty good game. It was a shame a lot of the other players were not up for it.
Spurs Watch saying, these performances and results away from home are unacceptable. Leicester, Newcastle, Brighton and Palace. We only have 3 wins away from home in the Premier League in 2024. No composure, not good enough. And it's absolutely spot on, really.
Yep. I mean, I would say Leicester away, Newcastle away. We should have been taking 3 points of the way we played in those 2 games, but we didn't, and we only had ourselves to blame because we missed the chances. But I didn't come away from those games thinking, "Oh, this is terrible, unacceptable, terrible." Like I didn't think that going after those games, albeit we didn't get the results. Brighton away, I think that's the one I'm most angry about because we had that in our hands, 2-0 up, and we completely threw it away. And then Palace away was probably the only game I feel like in those 4 we were really out-tacticked and we just didn't have answers. But that does happen. That will happen in the season. So I wasn't actually... I mean, I'm concerned why we were out-tacticked and what the problems were. But that was like the only game where I felt like we really were outdone in that game. So it's bad. I can't say not winning any of those 4 games is acceptable, and it's a situation which can continue.
We did get out-tacticked in the second half against Brighton. Hertzler made changes. We failed to respond to those changes, and we were sitting here saying he should have made changes under 1. After 2, no changes were made until the game was gone.
Yes, we did.
And there was a lot of time, yes, to claw the game back once he did make the changes, but he did get out-tacticked.
Yeah, he got. I don't think a lot of it was. Yeah, we did get out-tacticked in that second half against Brighton, but I think a lot of it was our own making. I don't think it was down to the change in tactics why we lost as much as the change in tactics got the momentum and into Brighton. But I mean, Welbeck said it after the game. He said second half wasn't about tactics. It was about just being up for more of a fight and being up for it and going for it a bit more and being more aggressive. And as much as the change in tactics changed the dynamic of the game, if you look at that second half, I don't think it was the tactics that won Brighton the game. It was a lot to do with how we approached that second half, I think, in my opinion. I think yesterday, I don't think it was how we approached it, which was the problem. As much as it wasn't at our best, I just think we were really out-tacticked in how they set up and we just couldn't find any advantages.
I think there were similar traits to both. Maybe one was one more the other way and one was more the other way, but there were still elements of both in both the games.
Yeah, but again, against Brighton, we were 2-0 up and we had that game in our hands.
Yeah.
We should be seeing that game out regardless of change in tactics. Palace was just a bit different, in my opinion.
Yeah, Leicester, Newcastle, we didn't get out-tacticked. I mean, we should have won both those games, but still, when you take it as a whole and losing 4 of these games, draw at Leicester, losing points in all these games so far is clearly just not good enough.
No, it's not good enough, and that's 100% is not good enough, and that's not something that can continue.
Mark Stats says Spurs lost possession 49 times in build-up against Palace tonight, leading to 7 shots. It's the worst single game result in the Premier League this season.
Yeah, well, I read a stat that was second to only Spurs in a single game have 1 possession high in the attacking third more than Palace did yesterday. I think the Spurs against Brentford game was the only time in the Premier League this season that someone had 1 possession more in the attacking third, and that just goes to show the troubles we had with this build-up, and also goes to show the difference in approach from Palace compared to a lot of their other performances this season. So I'm pretty sure they very much caught us off guard and they completely changed their approach, but also we really couldn't live with their press. We couldn't live with it, and that's a bit concerning.
Yeah. And when things are putting on us,
where they got their goal, isn't it?
When things are put on us, though, we just lack all sorts of composure, though, don't we?
But I mean, yeah, I mean, the last 2 games, if that's any evidence, that's true. But usually our build-up's really good. That's
But
usually one of our strengths.
even you take the Leicester game, for example, in that 15-20 minute period when Leicester were really on top, we also lacked a lot of composure in that game when Leicester were putting on us. So it does happen. I mean, it's a
that
trait.
happened, but then we regained control of that game, and we, had a
Yeah,
few chances near the end, and then we should have won.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I thought we were lucky at that time that Bentancur got the injury, because it put a stop in the game and let us all just, have a calm down and rethink the situation. But at that moment in time, as soon as Leicester were putting it on top of us, and when they were on top of us, we just lacked all sort of composure. And we need to figure out a way how to keep those composure in these kind of moments.
And that will come. Look, it's a young team, and we have to go through these periods to learn, and hopefully it will come anyway. Obviously, that's the aim. I think if Ange believed it would never come, I don't think he would be here. You know what I mean? I think he believes he can get that.
Well, let's hope he can deliver it. But that is the way the internet did react to the game yesterday.